Welcome. Thank you for being here. We have a special welcome to our guests. We'll introduce them later, but we've got an interclub going on as well with North Manatee. Please join me in the pledge. We'll sing My Country 'Tis of Thee, and then Ed Cleveland will come up with our invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Let's pray together. Father, we are privileged and happy to gather together again today. And we thank you for this opportunity to come together as Kiwanians and learn more about our community and how we can better serve the community and the children within it to do our job. We pray, Father, that you will bless the speaker today as we are happy to hear about the changes and the ongoing of the city of Bradenton and its leadership. We pray, Father, that you will bless the speaker and help him to bring a good message to us today. Now, Father, for those of us that are dining and those that cannot be here today, bless them and bless this food to our service. And we'll ask it in your precious name. Amen.
All right, everyone, I know the normal is to stop and just eat right away, but we're going to do a couple of things real quick, trying to get in some things. At this time, I'm going to have a new member introduction. We're going to have Buzz Turner come up and give us a little bit about himself. Buzz?
Okay, 20 minutes, right? Well, my name, you might know me by Bob Turner, or you may not know me at all, and that's okay too. But I moved here in 1979, went to work for the Bradenton Herald, and I retired from there in 2017 as president of the company. And I've really enjoyed Kiwanis for the last several years of my work life, and just decided I need to get back into it because it was something I was missing. And when you retire, you don't really know what to expect, and then all of a sudden, if you don't do anything, then you can expect nothing. So
Dottie wants me out of the house.
Dottie wants me out of the house. I told her today I had to go to physical therapy, and then I've got to Kiwanis. I said, honey, I probably just won't even see you till 2 o'clock this afternoon. She said, oh. She said, don't call me, just text me. But at any rate, I've really loved Bradenton. I came here on a job opportunity with the paper, and I had a choice of going to Colorado, which I thought was beautiful too, or coming to Bradenton, and I made the right choice. So here I am. Thank you very much.
Should have cut him off much sooner. All right, very quickly, some have asked about the theater and their mask policy, so I will just very quickly say that their policy currently is they wear masks if unvaccinated. Their employees are required to wear them in the public area. Patrons are being asked to wear masks, and they're kind of following the court system in terms of what their policy is. So here we are going to say that it's highly recommended, whether you've been vaccinated or not, to wear a mask. Your choice. We're not going to mandate anything here. So at this point, enjoy your socialization, and we will be back at 12:30 with the program. Thank you.
Let me just start off by saying welcome to Bradenton and Kiwanis. We appreciate y'all being here, and we hope that you'll come back. If this is your first time, we'd like to see you more than that. And we do meet every Tuesday, except for a few exceptions during the year. So come by anytime. We've always got something great going on. And this morning, with all the changes going on, when I got the last message about the change, and I was over at a chiropractor's. My back went out last week, and I was getting some laser therapy, and then they put my feet up in stirrups, and stretched my back like I was medieval rack kind of thing. Felt great when I was done. What was even better, though, before I left, they put some CBD oil on my back, and now it's got the munchies, and I'm not sure what to do. So, anyway, we want to welcome our guests here today. First of all, we have Mr. John Lang, and we've got John Stevens. Go ahead and stand up there. And Xavier Cologne, rather. Got John. And we've got John Stevens. And we got Xavier Cologne from the North Manatee Club. And, of course, Xavier Cologne is our current Lieutenant Governor. And so we want to welcome them all here, and I hope that you have a great time. We also have Michael Sanudo. He's in my understanding, you saw this on Facebook, right? I did, yeah. Yay. So all the effort that the guys are putting in on getting our social media stuff going is working. So we appreciate that, and thank you for coming. We also have as a guest of Dr. Mullis, Kevin, is it Kevin? No, Kevin Oatman. Yep. Thank you, Kevin. And a guest of Jane Coker, our illustrious Mayor, Jean Brown, right back there. And also have a classmate of mine from the class of 1970, Manatee High School. Go Canes! We have Rose Basiglio and her brother, Tony. And did I miss anybody? Okay, so I'll take this for a minute and put new batteries in. What else could go wrong today? So I think Neil knows how to project, so I'll let him do that while I fix the microphone.
I didn't want him to be the only one that had humor today. All right, a few quick announcements. The Foundation Board meets today at 4 o'clock. Location? What's the location? CRI. All right. Okay. 100th Anniversary Committee meets next Monday. You'll be getting something on that. Decon is this week. We have 5 representatives from our club going. Mac Aldrich, myself, Crystal Odesina, Aaron Craig, and Dr. Mullis is going. So we look forward to learning a little bit, or a lot, and bringing a little bit back to the club in terms of improvements that we might be able to make. Community service. We have an event at Manatee Elementary on Thursday. I know I haven't provided you any information on it, so I'm going to keep it that way. I'm still working a little bit on them in terms of what all they want. They have asked volunteers to be there at 5:30. There's going to be a lot of volunteers there and a lot of families there, so if you can sign up, please do so. I will be getting an email out today or tomorrow because I won't be there about what all we need to do there. We will be grilling and serving hot dogs, providing chips, and sodas and waters. So if you are signed up and can bring a cooler, I would like you to do that and put a bag of ice in it so that we can ice down the drinks. That is something that we need to do. The Back to School Prayer Rally is here on Thursday night as well. So if you want to go to that. President's Contest continues. We did have a winner. She is not here at this time, so as soon as she is next here, we will present that check for the President's Contest. Talent show, still heading towards that way, August 28th. It'll be up here in Kiwanis Hall. We look forward to the fellowship and the fun that we will have that evening. It's more about the dinner than the talent, because there will be a big lack of talent there. Believe me, there will be a big lack of talent. All right, so at this time we'll have Judge come up with trivia, and then we'll introduce the program.
All right, hello everybody. Last week we talked about 1962 in Bradenton, Kiwanis. And the Bradenton, Kiwanis 1962 president had a shop. And he sold items at that shop, and so it's a two-part question. What did he sell in his shop, and what was the name of the shop? Dennis?
Clothing, Jarvis shop.
Jarvis shop. What kind of clothing?
Women's clothing.
Women. That's right. Come on up.
What's it for?
Here, come up here.
Got to see you on Zoom.
That's right. That's right. We need to see you on Zoom as gift certificate to Jimmy D's.
Well, great. Thank
Here
you.
we go. Okay. So I'll see you next week. We're going to be talking about 1963 in Bradenton, Kiwanis history.
All right, today's program got pulled off in a matter of hours, so thank you to all the Kiwanians who stepped up and helped get this program put together. Our speaker from the FBI informed us he was sick this morning, and so a great number of people put a lot of effort into talking about who and what we want to do, and I think we came up with a great program for everybody today. Our program is the current Bradenton City Administrator. He began in July of 2021. He's got considerable government and public service experience. He primarily came from the city of Albuquerque, where he was the Chief Administrative Officer and a city attorney, among others. He describes himself as a lifelong student of leadership, data-driven decision-making, and inspiring others, and brings impressive education and experience to the job. Currently participating in an MBA program from University of Notre Dame. Expected graduation, May of 2022. Hopefully that goes well and on time. He also holds a law degree, as well as a Master of Litigation Law degree, and a Bachelor of Arts in Communications and Economics. An avid outdoorsman, Mr. Perry has been married for 30-plus years. He and his wife have 2 adult children. Would you please give a warm Bradenton Kiwanis welcome to Rob Perry.
Thank you, Neil. I'm just going to take a moment to adjust the technology here for the folks online in today's world. Well, good afternoon. I'm Rob Perry, as Neil pointed out, and I'm the new city administrator for the city of Bradenton, Florida. And I think I've been on the job now about 12 days. I started 2 weeks ago, and I got voluntold about today's assignment, basically. I got a call this morning at about 10 o'clock or so, Bill, yeah, and I was in a meeting, and I was told that I was going to be the understudy, the fill-in guy, basically, at the Kiwanis. And I happened to come to a Kiwanis meeting a couple weeks ago. I think it was my second day. And I realized, you got all the movers and shakers for the whole community there. I better be able to think quick on my feet and give a good presentation. And I'm going to try to do that. But in order to get my courage up, I looked at people that kind of have been understudies. And those are tough jobs when you get short notice and they tell you, it's time to get in the game and play. So there's a guy that you all know here. He's been here about a year. He's kind of newcomer like I am. He wears number 12. He used to play for a football team up in up north. His name's Tom Brady. Yeah, so he was a fill-in too. And I hope I do as well as he's done in that role. Another feller, back in 1901, when a president was assassinated in the United States, Teddy Roosevelt was foisted into that kind of duty. So here in the United States, we have a long history of stepping into it and getting it done, and I'm sure many in the room have done that as well. And most recently, we saw a representative of the United States sports community with Suni Lee step in for Simone Biles and win the all-around gold. So it can be done, and I'm going to proceed with that confidence today. I want to say thank you to all of you for your involvement in this community and welcoming me. The Kiwanis in this area and across the country is an important organization where you have folks that are the movers and shakers, the leaders of the community, visionaries really, and each and every one of you make positive and constructive contributions to the community. And ultimately, I used to call them opinion shapers, because a lot of you folks are in the know, and when people will ask you about something, you shape an opinion, and that's an important role in any community. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about myself, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't say thank you to my bosses, basically. And with Bill Sanderson in Ward 4, and Jane Coker in Ward 1, and Gene Brown, the mayor, overall, they do a really good job for you, and it's really been my pleasure. And coming into the community, they were instrumental in getting me in and teaching me a little bit about what I was getting myself into, how things work around here. I'm incredibly respectful when I go into places. I don't have all the answers. I like to listen. I like to study the history, like we were talking about earlier. And it's interesting when you look at the history of Bradenton, since its inception, basically. And it tells you something about the community. And it's interesting, like, one of the things is that the city of Bradenton doesn't really issue much municipal debt for infrastructure. The county does. They do probably hundreds of millions of dollars in bonds every couple years, and then those bonds mature, and they'll say, let's issue some more. And I always wondered why that was. And until I started studying a little bit about the history of Bradenton just recently, I didn't know that actually early on debt was issued, and there was an economic downturn many, many years ago. And I guess it had to do with people kind of changing the boundaries of the city so they could get out of the obligations of that debt. And ultimately, some of that debt defaulted, and I think the history's been not to issue much debt. And I never knew that, because when I was in Albuquerque, we did a bond program, about $150 million in capital improvements, roads, parks, fire stations, museums, all the stuff that people like, quality of life enhancements. $150 million every couple of years. It went to voters, and again, retired debt, new debt, didn't raise taxes. But that whole system is what kind of builds the infrastructure for community. And I never understood that. As a matter of fact, I would basically go to the bond rating agencies and say, how much capacity do we have? And the financial analysts from Wall Street would say, well, you have $3 billion in debt on the books, and you're clearing $150 million, so you have $150 for your bond program. And the council would come to me, and they'd say, great, issue $200 million in debt. Typical government thing, just overextended a little bit. And when I came here, what I first realized was the great financial shape that the city of Bradenton is in. Their debt service loads are virtually non-existent. Their net value position, their bond ratings and all that. So those are big shoes for me to fill. It's kind of hard to come into that and think you can do a whole lot better, but I'm going to try. And that's why I go back with that story. A little bit about myself. My wife and I came to the Gulf Coast and Pinellas County back. It was when we graduated college and law school, grad school, and it was back in '89, '90, and it's where my love affair started with this area of the state. And my wife and I lived here for about 4 years. I worked as an assistant state attorney for the state prosecutor's office for the 6th Judicial District, which is Pinellas and Pasco County. And it was really the underpinnings of probably management. I would have been content being a prosecutor here and just staying here the rest of my life, but it was the beginning. Bernie McCabe, who was the state attorney at the time, said, "You ever been in the military?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, we're not the military, but we run a tight ship. We expect people to be here at 8 and stay till 5, minimum." We ended up usually trying cases till back in the day, 10, 11 o'clock at night. But it was like, look, government service is not an easy road, and you got to work hard at it. And, you know, the honesty component and the integrity and the transparency is critical to that. And as far as getting the job done back then, it really provided me a basis that I think I was able to catapult in additional roles. So we do the deal here. I climbed the ladder pretty quick. I'm a lead trial attorney within 3 years. I'm loving life. I'm going out to the islands on Saturday, playing volleyball, drinking beer, and life is good. You know, I'm a young guy and everything. Well, I guess it was too good because my wife's like, "You're having too much fun." She got a promotional opportunity, and we moved back to Albuquerque where we met in college, my wife and I. And she got a promotional opportunity with Fortune 500 company. So we went back there. And I said, "Man, I've been doing the knife and gun club of St. Petersburg." That's what it felt like as a prosecutor. A lot of violent crimes, big cases and stuff. And I said, if I only had a job as a white-collar crime prosecutor, well, I got one with the Attorney General's office, and it was like, no disrespect, Mayor Brown, but working in a funeral home. It was very slow and quiet and, you know, and mundane, right, yeah. And so racehorses like to run, and I'm there like, wow, this isn't all that cool. So that's where the odyssey of my career kind of starts. And I go to the state police as an assistant general counsel with their special investigations division out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I'm there about, I guess, 2 years at that point, and a new governor gets elected. His name's Gary Johnson, and he's an incoming kind of businessman. We're going to run it like a business. He's a successful governor, runs 2 terms, fairly conservative, fiscal Republican, and he actually ran for president on the independent ticket and the libertarian ticket specifically. Well, what ends up happening is he didn't like the people that the government insiders. And so at the state police, Department of Public Safety, largest law enforcement agency in the state, there's 2 people. They applied for the job, and lo and behold, they go out and say, "I got the job." And the other fellow says, "I got the job." And he didn't like that. So he said to Lou Gallegos, the chief of staff, "Do you have anybody else?" And they said, "Well, we've got this hard-charging guy, Perry, that's down there in SID, but he's kind of young." And so I go in there and I interview with Lou Gallegos, and the governor steps in from his office into the chief of staff's office, talks to me about 10 minutes. I'm driving back. We got the brick phones, cell phones back then. And Lou goes, and he's a gruff guy. He worked for the Bush administration, a government professional, really interesting fellow. But he goes, talk to Gary. He said, "Hire the kid." And I go, "What does that mean?" He goes, "It's you're the kid." So at 34 years old, I am the director of the state police. And it's pretty phenomenal, really. I thought you had to be like, at that time I thought you had to be like late 50s, really. I just had no idea. And so I do that for a couple of 4 years. And what ends up happening is the state prison system out there blows up. And I get voluntold that you're pretty good at state police. You're going to end up over there at corrections, running the whole state corrections system. It was 9 state prisons, 41 probation and parole offices, and a lot of people and a lot of money. And I'm still pretty young at that point. I think I was 38-ish, yeah. And so I go over there, and they say, well, I start learning about everything, really. Because if you run prisons, you can almost be a mayor. Is Mayor here? Right. So, and what I mean by that is you're responsible for the mail, you're responsible for the education of inmates, these populations at all the prisons, their health care, their visits that they come in, of course their security, their education, the food they eat. You really run something that is a very, very integrated, complex system. And as I worked there, I ended up working there 6 years as secretary. I was the longest reigning secretary in the state's history at that point. And I thought, well, now I'm 43, 44, I'll run for Attorney General. I run for Attorney General, I win the Republican primary, and I get trounced in the general election by like 9 points. There is an incumbent that was a Hispanic female, very well connected. A lot of the press was that she was giving out government contracts in exchange for campaign donations. The newspaper in the editorial section said she's taking money with both hands. And I go, well, maybe I got a shot at this thing, but it didn't work out. And I realized then that sometimes you get what you need, because my mom was dying of cancer, and my kids were 4, and they would have never seen their grandmother as much as they did in the last 6 months of her life, and she would have never seen them if I got that job. And I was able to be there with her through the hospice thing, and it humbled me a lot and made me really reflect on life. And my career has been fine. So anyway, I get back into government afterwards. I'm the city attorney for Albuquerque. Last 8 years, I was chief administrative officer. I went from city attorney to chief administrative officer. Albuquerque, 6,000 employees, a $1 billion budget. We're 600 employees, about 125 million. So it's like 1/10. Everything is 1/10 that I've seen of what I was doing. And I take a year and a half, 2 years off. We buy a home in St. Petersburg Beach. I kind of fix it up while I'm doing the therapeutic thing about what am I going to do in life. We talked about the retirement. Your wife wants you out of here, go, that kind of thing. And so that's going on. And I said, there's a vacancy down in Bradenton. And she goes, I know where Bradenton. It's real nice down there. I said, that's what I always heard every time I went through there. And one thing led to another, and I applied and got contacted and went through a competitive interview process and kind of explained to the folks, who I was, what I was about, what my philosophies were, and there was a natural alignment, basically. And a lot of that dealt with the conservative nature of how business is done in Bradenton, the potential, the people, the history, the diversity, the full-service nature of the city of Bradenton. They do a lot, and they do a lot with a pretty lean staff. So it was a good fit. I've been here now, as I said, a couple of weeks. And, I want to talk just a little bit about where we're going to go. And so I come into the situation, and obviously it's post-COVID. I don't know if it's post-COVID. That's a good question, I guess. But it's hopefully through the worst of COVID, if nothing else. And, all this American Recovery Act money is out there, the ARAPA money. City of Bradenton's got like $10 million in it. I think the county's got like 50 or 60, probably more than that. But we want to look at being good stewards of the money. And so what we're trying to do is say, what should those funds be used for within the permissible guidelines? And I'm a believer that government's got 3 core things they have to do. That they have to provide public safety to start with. If you don't have safe streets and safe communities, you don't have much. It's tough to live in a place or send your kid to school when she's not worrying about the algebra assignment. They're worrying about whether they're going to get mugged and rolled on the way home. Those are predatory environments, and today's world, crime is on the uptick. If there's one thing I understand, it's criminal justice, and it's up, and there's a lot of reasons why it's up. And the police are very challenged in doing their jobs. There's a notion called depolicing. That is that you're not actively pursuing and abating crime. When you see a car and there's 3 suspects and it looks like there's shenanigans going in, maybe you shouldn't stop that vehicle because you'll have to call in a backup and you might have to draw your weapon. And if you do that, you might have to use force. And if you use force, you might have to be scrutinized and ultimately prosecuted. And so cops are pretty good at realizing how to make sure they get home safe. There's a little bit of a pullback on that active policing that's going on. I think that is contributing to the rising crime rates, particularly in big cities. You don't see that in Bradenton. The Bradenton Police Department is dedicated to doing their jobs. Melanie Blevins, the chief, is an awesome chief. She came here from St. Petersburg. They do a great job, 126 sworn officers. They do a full service of police services, and our crime rates, although they're interesting in particular categories, they're not going crazy like they are in other places. There's a lot of community policing going on where they're doing educational initiatives in the after-school space. Officers do that. That means they care. They're not going home. They're spending time with children of color and underserved and people that need that kind of support, and they need those kind of role models. And when you see young police officers, females, males, but people of all races and backgrounds doing that, you got to believe that they have pride in their community. And the people that are here, I assure you, they have pride in their community. So we got that priority of public safety. The next priority, and as it relates to public safety, some of those funds we're looking at the fire protection services too. There's 3 fire stations in town, and one of them's in pretty bad shape. If you look at the apparatus, one of the main trucks that we have is you could just look at it and go, that probably needs to be replaced. It's in pretty bad disrepair. And so we have capital obligations to you all to make sure that if something happens, we can respond timely, our communication systems work, our paramedic services are good, and our fire protection services, both equipment and personnel, are adequately funded, trained, and operational. And that's what I'm going to make sure we do. Along with a whole host of others and the support of my principals on the council and mayor. The other area, quality of life. We look at a lot of the amenities that are in a city, and particularly the downtown the redevelopment efforts that have been done through the community redevelopment areas. And that's a beautiful river walk downtown, and you see things really coming into place. It's just a great place to capitalize on the Manatee River and the history that played in this particular area, dating back to agrarian times, or even when it was a village for free men. How it developed actually, and everything. And so those quality of life initiatives are very important, and we have a whole host of them on the board too that we're going to try to fund in a fiscally prudent way and administer those contracts and the construction and delivery of those services and operation of those services in a professional way. I think, when I was talking with one of the counselors about coming here, I said, who doesn't want to live where you can basically get around and have entertainment and have shopping and have recreation and culture and education and all of those types of things. That's quality of life and safety. Who doesn't want to live there? Because there's a lot of places that might have one or two, but I don't know if I'd walk the streets of New York City anymore. From what I hear, it's pretty rough up there. So with that, we kind of come through the economic development as the last component, and I think it's probably one of the most challenging components. And one of the reasons why is the geographical location of South Bay, being Bradenton, Manatee County itself, and down to Sarasota and things like that. It is really difficult. It's similar to Albuquerque to try to get major corporations or employers to do site locations and bring their business to an area that isn't centrally located from a transportation perspective. It's always a challenge. And so it leaves you with the challenge of new business, expansion of existing business, and innovation. The world is changing. If I haven't learned anything, that it's incredibly changing, and the whole concept that folks that have that challenge is to grow jobs organically within their own community, make it so that our kids and our grandkids want to stay here. And there's a lot of reason to stay here. You can just walk out the door and, usually sunshine and great surroundings and great people. But you got to have those kinds of economic opportunities. And you got to have them for underserved populations. You need them for the whole panoply of people that are in your community. And a lot of times that type of organic growth has to be done through entrepreneurship, and that means innovation. And we're going to look at trying to do some of that stuff. The world is changing, digital transformation. We were talking with Your Honor about what's going on in his court regarding video conferencing of hearings compared, now with COVID compared to before. And COVID is a disruptor, but it makes you rethink about how to do things. And a lot of the how to do things, the answer lies somewhat in innovative technological solutions that are digital. I know, for a room of folks that are probably, in a little bit more advanced ages of life, that's hard because I'm not good with technology. When I got a problem, I get one of my kids to fix my phone or my computer. It just works better that way, yeah. But I am good with business, and I think that there are opportunities to try to make a community investment in those kinds of things. And ultimately education. You guys have a good school system here in the public schools. There's problems everywhere, but it's not one of those places where I think people are afraid to, as I said, walk down the street and worry about the algebra class and that kind of type of thing. So, the glass half full, half empty. I mean, I think it's pretty much almost full to the top, and I think it's because of folks like you. It's because of leadership that we have, and I can promise that myself and the staff over at City Hall that I work with, they're committed, and we're going to open the next chapter of what the City of Bradenton does. And I hope you join me in that journey and join our leadership team. I think they've done a great job, and you can't do it just with one or the other. We'll need your support, because you'll see initiatives, and some of them will be controversial, I can assure you. But I always look at the future and try to weigh the past into the calculus and make decisions about which direction to go in. So with that, I will refrain and stand for questions, I guess. Neil?
Anybody? Questions, please. Go ahead.
May we offer you an application for membership?
Of course. And if not, I'll be your best cheerleader, I assure you. Yep. Sir?
Are we going to have a Bradenton hot air balloon festival?
That's a great idea. The river with hot air balloons, and you're talking about the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, which is the #1 event in the world. That brings over $100 million because it's a 10-day event, and the only thing is that you got to go out and see the balloons. You got to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the sun comes up about 6:30, and because of traffic coming into Balloon Fiesta Park. But I never thought ballooning would be so cool and attract so many people. I mean, they come from all around the world, so maybe we can start something. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You said that we have 120-some police officers in town, and my concern is that the town is growing so rapidly that we need to keep adding just to keep up with our present growth.
Absolutely.
Plans to, and that's
Yep.
true, of course, with school classrooms and so many other services in our city. Are there plans to recognize that growth?
That's a great question, and there are plans to recognize the growth. Services for this area primarily provided by the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. We have the territorial boundaries in our own independent police department. It's a full-service department, but there's a lot of different functions of police. Like, we do all the CIS stuff, the crime scene analysis, and we don't do the crime lab type things and the like. And so this chief basically has done a great job, and I think she's looking at that. I'll be honest with you, as far as the vacancy rate, we had 1,100 officers authorized in the city of Albuquerque, 1,100. And we were able to basically maintain a force of about 850 to 875. It's hard to recruit police officers, partly because the salary, but partly because they did a survey of, like, it's a family business. And so they did this survey through, I think it was the Police Chiefs Association, ICP, International Association of Police Chiefs, and it was, would you recommend law enforcement to your children? Because it's a family business, usually the grandfather, the dad, and now the son or the daughter, and what happens basically is 81% of them said they wouldn't recommend it. That was pretty telling, and unfortunately it was not a good fact to hear, disappointing. So to answer your question, we are looking at staffing levels and adequacy of it. I think you can always use more police officers. They're expensive. Our good news is that we have about, I think, a vacancy rate of 1 officer out of the 126. Yeah. And our salaries and benefits package, cops are really, really good at looking at the difference in various surrounding communities of that. And so you have to be careful to make sure you're competitive. And then once you make an adjustment, the surrounding community makes an adjustment, and you're not competitive anymore. And so we're constantly tinkering with those elements to ensure that we are competitive with surrounding and competing areas. Yep. Yes, sir.
Given your short time on the job, you may not have an
That's a great question. I think probably we got to step up emergency management a little bit, and it would be supported. I mean, we're in a pretty bad hurricane area, as you know, and a lot of those services are provided by Manatee County, but I think we have to have our own independent ability to deal with that for the territorial boundaries of the city. A lot of interoperative communications go into it, resiliency, things like that. You know, obviously the response itself, integration planning of it. I mean, you don't think about it like in terms of all the peripheral stuff, but animal management. When we did incident command systems, our ICS for Albuquerque, we almost engaged every department in the city. I mean, you have seniors that are shut in. What happens? Like, who's checking on them? We have animals that are in the backs of yards or in houses. Animal welfare is county checking on all people and so both the integration and the infrastructure are really important to that. And so, you know, I never like to put all the eggs in one basket, but you kind of go into that hierarchy of priorities. Public safety is important, and so I want to make sure that we are prepared with our most important obligation. That, you know, obviously quality of life and economic development too. It's hard to say just one thing, and it's a great question. Because people will make investments in their community, particularly if they think they're getting back a valuable service. You know, it's always been my experience.
Okay, one last question. I got one more. As an individual that works downtown, I'm always concerned about all the empty buildings and how much real estate the city currently owns right now. Have you thought about what your plans are to reinvigorate and maybe invest in those buildings so we can have some more businesses and more residents downtown?
We are absolutely always thinking about that, and we have obviously the CRAs, which is a big component, which is a tax increment district. It puts a surcharge on taxes and basically is designed to catalyze and create business and community development in a, you know, certain geographical areas. A lot of that, they got the downtown CRA. So we're doing a lot in that. I'm trying to find out a little bit more about it. I know there's a bunch of proposals for specific projects in downtown that I think will probably get off the ground and assist in downtown development. And you know, it's a redevelopment initiative to the extent of Albuquerque. You know, their downtown was kind of run down. It's actually gone downhill, but you have to make an investment in those things, and I think that's what you're asking about. And where you have, you know, vacated property, you basically have, you've got to minimize that in order to bring about a tide that floats all boats. And you know, whether you're running the restaurant or the retail store or the training center or whatever it might be. And so we're trying to look at how it's all integrated together. And I think there's absolutely an interest, a willingness on behalf of our leadership team, both in administration and at elected levels, to do that.
All right.
Thank you all.
Hang right around here. Tradition follows a guest speaker. So this is the first time you've been here. Hopefully you will be here many more times. Our tradition is to provide you a golden ruler to measure your future success as the city administrator of the city of Bradenton.
That's awesome, Neil. Thank you so
Yep.
much. Appreciate it, buddy. Yep.
Here, Rob,
Yep. Go
do
this
a
way.
picture real quick.
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, great program again, and thank you all again who pulled this all together on very short notice. We want to thank our guests, especially our interclub that showed up, but all of our guests, please come and see us again. Our next meeting will be August 10th. Dr. Yuzi Baram on the Angola settlement, so it should be a very interesting program. Remember our community service event this Thursday night, and have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next week. We are adjourned.